Hey everyone, this is Patrick from Heavy Therapy, and I am excited to deliver the first of what I hope is many videos in a series that I am calling First Reactions Metal Releases 1/20/2023. So, this is an example of me bringing together my time on Metal Twitter and also my time here on Metal YouTube. So my handle on YouTube is the same as it is here, my handle on Twitter is the same as it's here on YouTube, called Heavy Therapy. And I often do first reactions to kind of mini reviews on all of the new albums that came out on any given Friday throughout any given year. And I give a number, and they're just first reactions, right? Sometimes I listen to an album more than once, and I put this is my second listen, and then I go from there. But yeah, I want to do this semi-regularly on YouTube as well. I am not going to promise a video every week, but I do plan on doing this, yeah, relatively regularly here on YouTube. So let's begin. So I first want to give basically my policy or general approach to what I am doing here and what I do on Twitter. So I will only cover albums that I listened all the way through at least once. I use a scale from 0 to 10, and I include decimals. So for example, an 8.5 out of 10 is a solid B, a 9 out of 10 is an A minus. Most albums I will cover will probably be stuff that is fairly good because I got all the way through the album. You know, albums that are 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10s, I don't tend to go all the way through. There are going to be some exceptions, including this first episode here. I try to I tend to give something at least a 7 out of 10 if I think it's good, but not for me if it's in a genre that I'm not super familiar with. Um, but I feel like, someone else might listen to this and it could be their album of the year. It could at least be an 8.5 or a 9 for them. I'll try to give that at least a 7. So this is also some insight into how I wind up deciding what I want to purchase, because stuff over a 7.1 is stuff I plan on revisiting myself. This is just a little shortcut, a little heuristic as to how I use my scale. Stuff that's higher than a 7.1, or stuff that is at least equal to a 7.1 or higher, tends to be stuff that I plan on checking out later. And yeah, if you're higher than a 7, if you're equal to or higher than a 7.5, I'll put you on my wish list and potentially purchase it. Okay, so these are in no order necessarily, though they tend to increase in favorite in they tend to increase in terms of the stuff I present later is stuff I like more, but that won't always be the case. And I do have one ask of you while you watch, or a couple asks of you while you watch this type of series on Heavy Therapy. I ask you not to take these too seriously. They are gut first reactions based on a system that I've used since I was in my early teens. I'm thinking about overall experience. I'm thinking about song composition. I'm thinking about production, tone, vocals, musicality, not lyrics often, right? Because these are my first reactions. I'm not factoring in cover art. So cover art is not influencing my score. Remember that this is for fun. Most metal or extreme music is at least somewhat good. Individual songs, sounds, bands, albums hit our ears differently for various reasons. More contacts with the subgenre tends to make us sometimes more critical. Less context in a subgenre might make us, well, less or more critical, depending on, sort of just depending on individual idiosyncrasies. So let's go. So first up is Tribunal. The Weight of Remembrance, out on 20 bucks spin. This band is from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is their debut album. This album is 7 tracks, almost 48 minutes of music, and I did not like this album very much. I did enjoy the first single, I think it was, so I was excited to check it out. The heavier parts felt a little bit derivative. Some of the doomier moments made me think of Amun-Ra, but almost in a derivative sense. It made me think of stuff too clearly. I appreciate that they have a cellist. I appreciate the overall vision. I appreciate. I thought this was a slog to get through. Now, it isn't my typical genre, so maybe I'm violating one of my own policies here by not just giving it a 7. But man, I trusted my gut here. It was underwhelming. I was really open to liking this. I was hoping I would like this, and I did not. Next up, we have Dryad, the Abyssal Plane, out on Prosthetic Records. This is black metal that is attempting to be raw, though it's kind of pseudo raw. And I did not like this at all. This is one of my least favorite albums that I've heard all the way through in the last few years. Almost no redeemable qualities is what I put in my first reaction on Twitter, and people were kind of confused because if it had no redeemable qualities, why didn't I give it a 1? And again, this number just popped in my head while I was listening to it. It probably should be a little bit lower. I revisited one song after my first listen, and I did not like this whatsoever. There's a lot of good examples right now of raw black metal that is trying to incorporate piano flourishes, ambient flourishes, dungeon synth type stuff. This just comes across as almost trying to pull the wool over your eyes kind of listen, and I don't know what I mean. I sometimes feel that way about albums. It seems just like they're really trying to copy stuff that's going on, but it was just not believable. I did not believe in this record. I didn't like anything about it. This is a 5 out of 10 for me. Next up, Imperium, Dekadenz, Into Sorrow, Evermore, out on Napalm Records. This band's from Germany. They've had a few albums out before this. This is probably kind of atmospheric, dark black metal. 8 tracks, 51 minutes of music. I enjoyed this. This is a 7.3 out of 10. I just like it's calming. It's sort of emotional. It's beautiful. It has, a good combination of riffs and atmosphere. Definitely plan on revisiting again. For now, it is a 7.3 out of 10 after my first listen. Next up, we have Reburied and their debut full length called Repulsive Nature, out on Translation Loss. They are from Seattle, Washington. They give you 10 tracks, 31 minutes and 18 seconds of music. I like this. This is also a 7.3 out of 10 for me after one listen. Doesn't stand out among similar sounding bands, but it's not underwhelming either. I don't remember a lot of this listen. This is probably the album out of all of these that has been the least memorable for me, but I still gave it a 7.3, which means I plan on checking it out again and seeing if that rating sticks, or seeing if it goes a little bit higher or a little bit lower, and then that will determine if it's on my wish list or not. I guess I should say the style of this music, right, is a mixture of that old school death metal with modern death metal. Next up, we have Nothingness with Supraliminal, out on Everlasting Spew. They are from Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is their second full length, 9 tracks, 43 minutes and 26 seconds. This album is good. I did give it a second listen and I dropped the score, but this was my first reaction to it, right? But it's probably closer to a 6.9. But This had a lot of parts that I liked, but I don't think I think the parts were better than the sum, right? I don't think this is very strong songwriting. So yeah, this actually fell for me after my second listen. But my first reaction, I thought this was a 7.3. So yes, I changed my mind. These are just first reactions. But Nothingness is probably not an album, or I should say Supraliminal is probably not an album I'm going to revisit. I would say for fans of Wake's last album, which I was also not a fan of, but it's an attempt to have this sort of wall of sound, blackened death metal, great musicianship. I don't think the songs came together very well. Next up is Faithxtractor with Contempt for a Failed Dimension out in Redefining Darkness, Cincinnati, Ohio. 6 tracks, 24 minutes of music. This is entombed style, death grind, death metal. I'll give this an 8 out of 10. I also gave this 2 listens, and this is the score that I gave it after my second listen. Solid 8 out of 10. It fell a little bit after my second listen, but for now, this is a really good album. One of my favorites of this early of January so far. Just yeah, really cool elements. Don't remember too much of it either, but I just remember liking the overall production, the drums, the aggression, the song composition, and the overall sound is exactly the kind of sound that I like. Last is Negative Vortex with Tomb Absolute from Los Angeles, California, out on Sentient Ruin Laboratories. This is a long one, 9 tracks, almost 55 minutes of music. This is my favorite of the weeks so far. Of course, I'm going to listen to more of these releases throughout the year, but this is what I listen to, and these are the albums that I've listened to so far from this week of new releases. This is an 8.5 out of 10. I listened to this twice through. This also just has this really entombed style death metal, Swedish style death metal. It's punky at times. There's even some tracks that bring in probably some synth layers. At least 1 track, 2 tracks bring in these synth layers that really work well to create atmosphere. There's a lot of great doom sections here. There are even classical, like sort of heavy metal sounding shred and solos all over this. This is great. I really enjoyed this album. I definitely have this on my wish list to purchase. Really cool artwork, but that did not influence my score. Overall, this is an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, I will leave you all with that. Please let me know what you thought about this first edition of First Reactions. Yeah, so this is fun to deliver. I hope you enjoy it, and I will be back with more heavy therapy. Bye.